In this video, I'll be going over the psychology internal assessment and more specifically focusing on writing the IA introduction. Just a reminder, while your planning and conduction of the IA experiment is a group project, writing the report is an individual project and you should not be collaborating with your teammates or your group mates in order to write your report. Please do this individually. The introduction section is worth 6 marks in total, and in order to get the high range marks, basically a 5 and 6, you need to clearly state the aim of your investigation. What are you trying to study in your research or in your experiment, okay? And also state its relevance and explain its relevance. Basically, not just identifying why it is relevant or why it is important to investigate that specific aim, but also explain it in a little more detail, okay? The second descriptor basically has to do with the theory or model upon which your investigation is based. So for example, if you're replicating Glanzer and Kunit's research, the model that it is based on is the multi-store model. So you need to describe this model in detail and also link it to your investigation. So what does it have to say about the findings of Glanzer and Kunit's? Okay, so the link again has to be explained in some detail, not just stated. Finally, you have your independent and dependent variable that needs to be stated and fully operationalized in either your null hypotheses or your research hypotheses. And I will go into a little more detail about this in the following slides. So just a quick checklist. You need to describe a relevant theory or model upon which your research is based. Relevance is very important. You can't just describe a random theory or model and expect to get good marks. It has to be relevant and linked to your research, okay? Then you have to outline the original research briefly. Don't spend too much word count on that. Then link the theory or model to the findings of your research that you're replicating. You need to state the aim of your current investigation. You need to explain the relevance of your experiment, and you have to state clearly the research and null hypotheses, and in either the null hypotheses or research hypotheses, you need to operationalize the independent variable and the dependent variable. Some common errors that are made in the introduction. First, the original study is described, but the theory or model is not described. For example, you describe Glanzer and Kunit's research in detail, but don't mention the multi-store model or don't describe it at all, okay? The descriptor in the high range and also for the introduction in general is focused on the model, okay? You really don't get any marks for describing the study. So please do not forget to describe the model and link it, okay? The second most common error is not linking the research study to the theory or model, okay? So in Glanzer and Kunit's research, we know that the results have a lot to do with the primacy and recency effect. So how does that support the multi-store model? And how does the multi-store model explain that, okay? So try linking and explaining the findings of the research using the model. And the third mistake is that the aim is often stated, but no relevance is identified or explained, okay? Relevance, again, is to do with why is this investigation important or valuable to preferably your target population, okay? And another common error is that the hypotheses are stated, but the IV and DV are not fully operationalized. A tip that I would give all of you is to use bold or underline to highlight the component or descriptor that you are covering. For example, the aim, you can highlight or, not highlight, but bold aim or underline aim when you are stating the aim. Okay, this is just something extra that you can do. Here you can see the relevance is also underlined, and then the multi-store model, since that's the model you're basing your investigation on, that is also underlined. This is just something that you can do to increase the clarity of your report. So there is no formula or prescribed approach to your introduction and the IA in general, but this is something that I would suggest to just organize and structure your IA well. So in your paragraph 1, you would describe your theory or model, okay? I would recommend about 150 to 200 words maximum to do this. So in that paragraph, you need to fully describe the theory or model that is relevant to your investigation, okay? So if your research is on the framing effect, okay, you would describe the dual processing model and explain how cognitive biases basically come about. And the dual processing model is able to do that, okay? So that's pretty much what your introduction or your first paragraph of your introduction would look like. And another thing to highlight is that the halo effect, anchoring bias, primacy, recency effect, any effects don't count as theories or models, okay? So if you are investigating the anchoring bias, for example, you would have to link it to a model or theory such as the dual processing model, okay? The same with the primacy and recency effect, you would link that to the multi-store model. Those effects and biases on their own do not count as theories or models. In the second paragraph, you can describe your research study in about 150 to 200 words. Again, this is including the link that you will make between the research study and the theory or model upon which your research is based. Since your research study is not receiving any marks explicitly, I would keep the description of the research itself brief and outline the main parts, which is the aim, the methodology, and the findings. Focus your word count from these words to linking the research to the model or theory, okay? Again, your link should explain the findings using the theory and also kind of go over how this research supports the model or the theory. Then there's your paragraph 3. Here you can state the aim of your research and the relevance of conducting this research. Okay, stick to about 100 words maximum. That should be enough. You will first explicitly state the aim of your research. Are you replicating or modifying this the original study? Okay, and then the relevance of this investigation. Why is this research relevant to conduct? Okay, what value is it going to add in conducting this research? And it would be best if you explained the relevance of this research with reference to your target population. Okay, that just makes it more specific. Okay, and again here, if we look at the research of Glanzer and Kunitz, how is it relevant to education in the target population that you have, which are probably going to be students between the age of 16 to about 19. So how is the research of Glanzer and Kunitz relevant to understanding education, educational strategies, study strategies in that target population? And finally, you have your paragraph 4, which is basically your hypotheses. Again, stick to about 75 to 100 words. You do not need more than that for this paragraph or this section of your introduction. Okay, you need to state both the research hypotheses and the null hypotheses. Okay, the research hypotheses is basically your main experimental hypotheses that predicts that there will be an effect. And then there's your null hypotheses, which basically suggests that there is no effect between the independent variable and the dependent variable. Okay, and again here, something to point out is that your IV and DV must be fully operationalized. So your research hypotheses, basically your H1, can be stated either as one-tailed or two-tailed. Neither is correct or wrong. Okay, it's your choice. And this is going to influence these the statistics you use in your analysis section. Okay, so a one-tailed hypothesis is directional, wherein you are claiming that one group is going to perform better than the other. Okay, so here's an example, again with the Glanzer and Kunitz research. The immediate recall group will accurately recall more number of words than the delayed recall group. Okay, so you can see I'm explicitly stating that one group is going to perform better than the other or is going to recall more number of words than the other. Okay, so this is a one-tailed hypothesis. On the other hand, we have a two-tailed hypothesis, which considers both possibilities, that the research can go, the findings can go both ways, okay? So it is just claiming that there will be a difference in performance and not providing a direction in which group will perform better or which, group will recall more number of words. It's just stating that there will be a difference, okay? We don't know what kind of difference. And here is an example of that. two-tailed hypotheses, there will be a significant difference in the number of words accurately recalled between the immediate recall group and the delayed recall group. Okay? So again, you can state it either as one-tailed or two-tailed. That is your choice. Just make sure to keep this in mind while selecting your statistics. Okay? And if you look at both of these hypotheses, they're not fully operationalized. Okay? And in order to operationalize, you basically have to define how you will be manipulating the IV and how you will be measuring the DV. And the goal is to be as specific as possible. Okay, so with the independent variable, you're obviously, as researchers, manipulating the independent variable. Okay, and as recommended, having two conditions is better because that makes it easy for you to statistically analyze your data later on. Okay, so if the aim of your research is to investigate the influence of rehearsal on the recency effect, you can state the IV as being whether participants engage in the immediate recall of the word list or a 30-second distraction task before the recall. Okay, so you're basically stating what your two conditions are through your independent variable. Okay, and another example is for Loftus and Palmer's research, where your aim is to investigate the influence of leading verbs on memory. Okay, so your independent variable then would be the leading verbs contacted and smashed. You can see how I have been as specific as possible. I haven't just said the leading verbs. Okay, and then with your dependent variable, you're measuring the dependent variable. Okay, and again, be as specific as possible in mentioning how you are measuring it. Glanzer and Kunitz research, if it's a recall of a word list, how many words are the participants recalling? Is it 15 words? Is it 20 words? Is it the last 5 words from the 15 word list? Okay, so please specify that in detail. And for Loftus and Palmer's research, the dependent variable is the estimate of speed. So to fully operationalize that, you would basically have to mention whether you're measuring the estimate of speed in kilometers per hour or miles per hour. And that's basically what operationalization would be. So here is an example of what this final paragraph or section of your introduction can look like. You will have your research hypotheses, and in this research hypotheses, I have fully operationalized the IV and DV. There will be a significant difference in the estimation of speed measured in kilometers per hour between participants receiving the leading verb contacted and smashed in the critical question. Okay, so it's fully operationalized. You do not have to do the same again in your null hypotheses. You can simply state the null hypotheses that there will be no significant difference in the estimation of speed between the leading verb contacted and the leading verb smashed. Okay? And you can finally explicitly state the independent variable and the dependent variable after your research and null hypotheses. So here, leading verb is the independent variable. So leading verb in the critical question, either contacted or smashed. And the dependent variable is the estimation of speed at which car A, right, if you specified, that would also be great, was traveling measured in kilometers per hour. So I hope this video was helpful and you're able to write your introductions well and make sure that you hit all of those high mark band requirements.